What's going on, everybody? This is Chris, Bourbon of the Week. I have Phil and Julie with me. Unfortunately, John, as of right now, has some technical difficulties. We're hoping to get him in before the end of this. But like I said, it's me with Bourbon of the Week, Phil and Julie here, and we're going to have everything running live for you. Today, we've got Bang for Your Buck bourbons. They're going to join us. We're going to give our ideas on what we think, 3 bottles each, our best bang for our bucks are. And I'll pass it off to Phil and Julie to go from there and introduce themselves and give their first bottles for us.
What's up, guys? Welcome to this live stream, and thank you, Chris, for having us. This is awesome.
Definitely.
Really excited to be here. Sorry John couldn't make it, but you know, who knows what sort of energy crisis he's having up there. So he's going through it up there.
It's 92 degrees here, so I mean,
yeah.
Who knows?
We had to shut off the AC because it's too loud for this live stream, but we're hoping that we don't melt on camera here today.
The glow, the glistening glow we get.
Plenty of lights up here today, so you can see us, the beads reflecting. So the idea for this actually came from one of our big channel supporters, one of our favorite people, Lyle, who suggested that we do a list of our top 3 bang for your buck bourbons, and we said it's a great idea, but we have subscribers and viewers and folks all over the country. Let's bring a couple of different channels together. So you, of course, way out on the East Coast, and we're way on the West Coast, and John, Whiskey Neighbor, way up on the North Coast, for lack of a better term. So the idea I thought would be interesting is let's see if we can all give our picks from different places. And so thanks to Lyle for giving us the idea, and thank you for hosting us and having this thing. So we're excited to get started. And do you want to show off our first bottle?
I would be happy to.
We're going to go, by the way, from cheapest to least cheap.
See if we can see it. Old Granddad 114.
Old Granddad 114. We love this entire Old Granddad line. It's, as far as Jim Beam products go, we tend to like Jim Beam products, but there's something about this particular bottle, and really this one and the Bonded. We are absolutely crazy about those two. I'm getting all your audio all of a sudden, Chris.
Oh, man.
Oh, I think that was on my end. Sorry about that. So, yeah, we love, as I was saying, we love this line. We love the this one and the Bonded, but 114 proof. We get this for about $25, and we know some people getting it a lot cheaper than that. Fairly readily available, and we just think that it's a phenomenal whiskey. And the vanilla, the caramel, honey roasted peanut thing happening it's just spectacular in our opinion. And there's so much flavor that you can find for $25. It's just crazy.
Great daily sipper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great Friday. It's great all the time.
Great all the time. Yeah, and we're not going to stray too far from this proof point tonight. Everything that we're identifying as bang for your buck whiskeys, we are not necessarily proof hounds, but this is, in our opinion, a great place to start. And so we'll be tackling 3 bottles in that neighborhood tonight.
Quick hello to Skippy and Paul over there, like in the North Coast.
North Coast.
30 degrees today out there. I can't imagine.
Sounds terrible to me.
Yeah. The OGD, obviously a good one. I know you guys mentioned the Bonded on your channel before, as well as I've mentioned just the regular Old Granddad. Just a great lineup coming out of Jim Beam there. But I'm going to start off myself as well with something kind of down in that bottom shelf, yet still delicious area. Going with the Evan Williams Bottled and Bond. The Evan Williams, for me, coming out of Heaven Hill Distillery. Again, Bonded and Bond, so you're still talking about that proof with the 100 proof. You're getting the same type of basic flavor notes as far as the bourbon world goes. Your vanilla, your caramels, your oak, everything like that. A pretty good sweetness on this, and then a pretty good kick. Obviously coming out of Heaven Hill with that 98%, 98% corn, the 10% rye, 12% malted barley. You don't get too much of the rye kick, but you definitely get a little black pepper spice on this. And the best thing about this, as like you said with that one, it's just so well balanced. Everything that you get in this is, every time you sip it, you're not going to get any type of exceptional flavor profiles, but at the same time, you're definitely going to get something that's well balanced, well put together, that you can just enjoy every time you sip it. So,
completely agree. Yeah, and we actually just recorded a tasting of the Evan Williams Black Label this weekend. We just always overlooked it, never had it before, and we tried it side by side with the bottled and bond, and yeah, it's spectacular. Still so good for the money. That line, fantastic bang for your buck bourbon. Absolutely.
I love that Evan Williams white. It always just is that little hidden gem. You put it up against things that are 2-3 times its price point, and sometimes ekes through there. So
it's a fun, sneaky one to put it in some blinds. Absolutely.
Yeah. At $17, you really can't beat it for the price point at that, like you said. So I always have to make sure I have a bottle of that in my collection. And it looks like we have John joining us here. I don't know if we're going to be able to get him. Let's see if he pops up here, which would be nice. There we go. There he is. Look at that.
Goodness, there he is. Looking good.
John, do we have audio with you?
Hi, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me though.
We can, yes. John, so you're just in time.
Apologize for crashing the party late, but my power literally just came on. So you're so gracious to still bring me in.
Absolutely.
We love it.
We're glad you're here, John.
We were just kicking off, and we made North Coast shout out to you.
Yeah. So we
awesome. Thanks. Oh, where do I find? Now I've derailed you, but where do I find the chat normally so I can follow this along?
On the YouTube video page, actually, should be a live chat button on there for you.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll join the chat on my phone because right now I'm just in the Discord here. I can see you guys quite well. Which is fantastic. Great tech. Thanks. Chris, you set that up, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thanks for knitting that together. And hi, Phil and Julie. It was so nice to meet you. We haven't actually met before. So I just come crashing in late and just blowing up. I'm so sorry for that. So really, thank you.
We spent so much time watching you here in our living room. We feel like we know you already.
Likewise, I've been following you guys a little longer than Chris. I'm just getting to know your channel a little bit. But as I was saying in our chat beforehand, you've got quite an impressive selection behind you. Certainly far deeper bourbon shelf than I have. So respect.
Unfortunately, I have a certain budget, and I can't quite stray out of the bourbon world yet. I wanted to make sure I got a good bourbon base before I work into the whiskeys like you over there, but up north there on the coast there, you got a good collection of whiskeys yourself, so I'm jealous for sure.
So I'm sorry for derailing. Why don't you continue, and I'll jump in as you let me.
No, you're right on time, actually. We just gave our first bottles each. Phil and Julie went with the old Granddad 114. I decided to line up the Evan Williams bottled and bond. So it's on you as far as your first bang for your buck bourbon. What do you got for us?
Well, I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with the Knob Creek. Now this, in my area, the 9-year-old has just come back out, right? I think it's probably been out with your guys a few months ahead of us, but we just saw it up here. And it's priced, it's come back in the market like $5 or $6 less than the non-age stamp, and sits at pretty much the same price as Wild Turkey. And we know that's a really good value point. And I really like Jim Beam. So I don't have anything poured. I haven't had anything yet. So I'll try to catch up. But that would be in my area. Anyone watching up in my area, like certainly Alberta or Canada, this is, as I said, just hit the shelf, went on for, I can't do the math. It's 32 Canadian, which is a really good value. So, yeah.
Solid. Yeah, absolutely. Same great minds think alike here with Jim Beam in the first round.
Yeah.
I feel left out a little bit, I'll be honest with you.
So cheers to the first round and for getting together.
Cheers.
I love it. Cheers.
Did you guys share why you picked what you did? Like I jumped in pretty quick about price, but I didn't talk about flavor or anything.
Yeah, I think just the idea for me is the bang for your buck. It's satisfaction out of a bottle. You know, I think that's probably true for all of us, that you don't have to spend a lot to get a lot. And you know, this Jim Beam profile here with the honey roasted nuts and the vanilla and the oak and all those big flavors out of the affordable bottle. I think that all three of these bottles have that going on.
Awesome. Yeah, certainly agree. I tend, for me, Knob Creek's got a bit of a soft spot for me. I don't know why. It could be price. It's easy to reach for, and And so you start to develop when we talk about how a whiskey can change, you open it up and is it the neck pour, not the neck pour? Everyone debates that kind of thing. And while whiskey changes, I also think we change in response to the whiskey. Like we start to go, oh, I know what that tastes like, and that's going to go really well with this, whatever, the campfire, because it's got a little more of this oak going on. Or, oh, that's going to go really well with, and I think we start to seek flavors that we know we like. Like I find a little bit of dark cherry in Knob Creek. Not a lot of people do, but I find a little bit more cherry in there than a lot of other Jim Beam. It's not as nutty as some, and so for me, I'm like, oh, I want a hint of that, and that's maybe why I reach for a bottle like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have an extensive collection of various types of whiskeys, from Canadian to Scotch, and we talked about this a little bit lately on a couple of our videos. But I think that if you have that palate that appreciates subtlety, and if you can develop that and cultivate that palate, yeah, absolutely. Then you can really zero in on those flavors that you really specifically like on a whiskey. To hear you talk about that specifically with that cherry note, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm trying to, as I will say, the bourbon novice of the group here, really trying to hone in on the ability to pick out flavors like that and kind of nose it and pick out flavors that might be subtle to some and maybe non-existent to others. So it's really interesting to be able to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, Chris, I'm with you on that. I mean, I heard that dark cherry note on a Knob Creek, which I'm going to look for next time we try one.
Exactly.
Try it.
Well, I think more people would go, as you were saying, there's cinnamons, oaks. I think you're going to get that little nutty Jim Beam in there, but yeah. I don't know. I think it's there. Look for it.
Well, yeah, we're going to have to check that out.
We don't have any 9-year on our shelf, I don't believe.
No, we don't have that one on the shelf right now. I see DMC KY sipping on Alberta Premium Cask Strength tonight. Talk about big flavor. That's a solid one. We love that one.
Yeah.
And actually, Chris, Madeira Diaries also. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just asking you, Chris. Have you had a chance to try the Cask Strength, the Alberta Premium?
I have not. No, I have not.
That's a hit.
Well, I think batch 2 is the one that's showing up more international right now.
Okay.
But in my opinion, it's worth the journey. I think it's worth the try.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Madeira Diaries is a gentleman that I worked with. He loves that John Paul behind you as well. We did a video together where he has that John Paul behind you, and that's another good bottle that you have.
Yeah, tonight we're doing bourbon, but we should come back and do international whiskey or Scotch, or if it was easier to ship, I'd ship some Canadian your way, and we could go through some Canadian. It's funny, I've had a few viewers, oh, you got to recommend some Canadian. Oh, where are you? Well, I'm in Texas. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'll get on some Total Wine or something that I can look up, and I'll go through 7 pages of Canadian. And I'm like, well, there was one bottle maybe I would try. Like, it's so hard that we can't exchange our liquid more freely.
I know. We're so close too.
Seriously. Yeah, are we neighbors or not? Come on.
Yeah. But thankfully, you share much more freely with us up north, so I have many bourbons to consider. So thanks to that.
Absolutely. Should we get into our second bottle? Phil, Julie, you want to start with your second one?
Bottle number 2.
We feel a little guilty about this one because I feel like not guilty, but everyone's on board with this one.
Yeah. I think that if there's one unifying North American whiskey to make this list, this has got to be it, right? For us, it's Wild Turkey Rare Breed. There you go. The wild.
Everybody's got one, right?
The 3 on it. Yeah, and this is one of those situations where there are so many great Wild Turkey bottles. There are so many that could be on this list. But for us, it's. I believe now this is selling for about $43, $44. But we've seen it. We actually got this one for $40, and it wasn't on sale. I'm not sure if the price is gonna remain that way, but we've seen it in a lot of places for $40. And this is a barrel proof product, 116.8 proof, and that charred oak flavor, this huge flavors. The nose on this, the aroma is incredible. For $40 to get this sort of massive flavor out of a bottle, it's incredible. I think that I'm pretty sure that we all probably had this one in mind at some point while we were putting our lists together. But just a terrific bourbon in our opinion. We just love this stuff.
No, I don't disagree with you. The Wild Turkey line is one of my favorite for sure. So that's how I kind of got my start in the bourbon world, and it'll always have a special spot in my heart. I think Rare Breed was actually one of the first barrel proof bourbons that I tried, and didn't kind of make that face when you go from a Basil Hayden's 80 proof all the way up to a Rare Breed type of thing. So it's definitely got that smoothness, that drinkability that comes along with it, but at the same time, punches you with those flavors and that spice.
Yeah, exactly like you said. It just sips so nicely. There are, if you don't care for a ton of cinnamon, you don't like a lot of spice. I would say that this is medium spice as far as those big flavors go. But some people don't care for the spice of this one. It's not really the ethanol that scares people off of this one. Usually it's the spice or something like that. But this is, in our opinion, really accessible, flavor wise.
Yeah, I'd agree. And we're getting some love in the chat, and people liking the Rare Breed as well.
It is few and far between when you find people that don't care for it.
I know.
So I'll get started with my next pick here, and unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, maybe fortunately, I went with another Heaven Hill product, in which case I'm going to go with the Henry McKenna 10-year, and this bottle for me is, again, one of those bottles that I'll always have on the shelf as long as I can find it. Everything about this bottle, from the verbiage on it, you've got aged 10 years, the single barrel, the bottled and bond, just the label style and everything that goes along with it is delicious. Coming out of Heaven Hill, we obviously have the same mash bill that we're working with, but this is another one of those that kind of takes the Evan Williams product and really just premiumizes, makes it more premium. You get a little bit more oak and a little bit more wood on that flavor profile since it is aged 10 years. And it's just absolutely fantastically blended. It's just so perfectly blended, if you ask me. When I look at bourbon and when I compare my bourbons, I kind of compare it to this kind of bottle when you're talking a $50 bottle for everything that you're getting in this. Just won an award recently. I forget exactly what award it was, since so many are coming out all of the time, but just recently won an award, so it's a little bit harder to get. It might not be on the shelves for a little bit because it's an allocated bottle now, just like everything seems to be. But if you can find that Henry McKenna, I would definitely pick a bottle up if you see it.
Yeah, it's the McKenna, of course, is almost always one of those on the shelf, because when we see it, we pretty much scoop it up. But that one, we used to get that for $32, and for a 10-year whiskey, I mean, it was one of the greats. Even with the price increase, it's still flavorful. It's still 10 years aged. A well-aged bourbon, something special. Absolutely.
And this is where I get to be jealous. Earlier when we were talking about there are a few good Canadian whiskeys that you don't see. Henry McKenna doesn't show up around here, and you read awards or you watch channels like you guys talk about it, and you're like, that looks tasty, and I haven't had it, so I can't give my thoughts. Certainly the Rare Breed earlier, that is a unifying whiskey, I think, across a lot of different nations, so that's pretty good.
Absolutely.
My second, yeah. So anyways, McKenna, I would love to try it. I can't share my thoughts. I've never had it.
We need to figure out some sort of whiskey exchange program, John. We need to.
There's got to be something out there.
What do we got to do to make this happen?
Phil's been all summer. Phil's been talking about the Canadian rise, and
I love a Canadian.
He's just
all in. We get a few good ones down here. Man, we're missing out for sure.
Someone in the chat was saying the Northern Border release. If you ever see any of those, it's kind of like BTAC. It isn't really. It's the poor Canadian version, but it's a really, really good whiskey. So I don't want to down talk it. But it comes out. It's a rare release that comes out every year. And I wish we could share more of that with you guys. My second bottle, actually, I don't know which way to go because I kind of cheated. You guys said 3, and I think I've got 6 here. Because I was gonna say,
we can throw in 6.
Oh, we got more, right?
But what I'll do is, because I meant to say this, I was just still catching up on the Knob Creek. So this will be my second bottle then. Really, it's any single barrel from Knob Creek. Like you can tell, I have a bit of a bias for the flavor profile, but I find two things, and I think this is true for yourselves, that single barrel Knob Creeks tend to be quite affordable. They are up here for 120 proof whiskey, and then every now and then you get a store pick like this one where it's a 14-year-old and it's got a little bit of story behind it, and it's really only a couple bucks more. Like it's still a very, very affordable bottle. So maybe my second pick will be another Knob Creek, which makes me sound like I'm singing from only one song sheet. But I think if you can find a store pick that's still affordable, they often are. They deliver a really good flavor profile for the money. So I think it would definitely be a bang for your buck recommendation. Do you guys have history with store picks? You must, eh?
We actually love store picks, absolutely. But this is a situation where we get to be jealous because I've never seen a Knob Creek bourbon store pick. Never.
Really?
I'd have to admit I'm the same way here. We have never seen one here, that personally at least.
And they they just get talked up online, and it's one of those things that we look from afar very jealously. But we hear nothing but good things about them.
We love a good store pick.
I just assumed you were awash with store picks, and I was lucky to find one. So that's an odd, because I've heard other channels talk about it. Like it seems like it's some markets they're able to get it. For us, we have a fellow. I don't know the guy. I know him through Twitter, but a local store that before COVID, goes and picks those barrels. And fellow in the chat, Chris Beaton, is the one who gave me a pick on this. He said, John, it's Canadian. I think it was 55 Canadian. So what is that? 45, something like that, for a store pick 14-year-old 120 proof bourbon. I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean, I haven't opened this one, so I can't tell that this one is phenomenal. But even just the regular cask, single cask ones are I think a great deal.
As far as store picks here in Pennsylvania, we're state run, so everything kind of runs through an online program once you start to get into good bottles or allocated bottles. So I have a Buffalo Trace store pick, and that's actually the only things that I've been able to get my hands on as far as a single barrel store pick goes. So
okay. Cool. Yeah, those Buffalo Trace picks are generally fantastic too. So if you can only get one,
right,
either the Knob Creek or the Buffalo Trace seems to be the ones that are the most sought after.
Really cool. All right, so I guess that'll be my second bottle. Like someone in the chat said, lots of love for Knob Creek. Yeah, I guess so.
Is it to us for our third bottle?
Sure.
I think it's to you.
All right.
So we're a little split decision on this one. We're going same lane.
Same lane.
But just a slightly different.
I think most people knew that these bottles were going to come up here.
Yeah, if you've been on the channel at all, you'll know our love for the Old Forester line.
Yeah, and the thing about these bottles is, again, these are not the cheapest bottles on the shelf, but this is Old Forester Whiskey Row Series 1910 and 1920.
It's Julie Miller splitting this one.
Splitting this one down the middle. These bottles are $55 US for the 1910, $60 for the 1920, and they're just so incredibly satisfying. And the 1910, it goes through that extra charred barrel finishing process, so it's labor intensive. And the 1920 barreled at 150 or bottled at 115 proof. So they're big flavors. They are, in our opinion, hugely satisfying. They're always on our shelf, and for the most part, readily available. There's some places where they can be a little tricky to come across, a little tricky to find, but we have not on the West Coast here had any trouble finding them at all. And even though they're, again, not the cheapest ones on the shelf, we just find them so satisfying, and they hit our palates perfectly, which personal preference plays such a huge role in whatever you keep on your shelf at all times. For us, it's this one. Well, these ones.
These ones.
So you mentioned availability for those. Those are two that were not on the shelves at all here in Pennsylvania. You kind of had to travel to find Old Forester. You got the what is the one I have? The 86 proof Old Forester, like the bottom shelf stuff. But as far as the 1910, the 1920, even the 1897 and the 1870, they were just tough to find. Thankfully, they recently have become more available here, which is good. And I got to agree with you. Old Forester is slowly becoming one of my favorite. You've already picked Wild Turkey, which was my favorite, and Old Forester is definitely soon becoming one of my favorites. So you guys got a great lineup there.
Oh, 1910. Boom.
Oh, come on, Lyle. No,
But we have to put a
we,
vote to that,
had the good
1910
fortune
versus
of someone sending
1920.
me a sample of 1910, and I loved that sample all the way through. I thought, oh, this is so rich, and can't get that bottle up here either, but can get the 1920, and definitely think that's a fantastic. That needs to be on everyone's journey at some point. Have you guys had? You mentioned, Chris, like the 1876. Is that the Bottle and Bond, and the regular 1870? I haven't had either of those.
Yeah.
I have the
how do those
1897, the
flavor
Bottled and
profile-
Bond.
How does that flavor profile compare to 1910 or 1920?
I think it's definitely similar. I think it's a step down as far as the full flavor effect goes. I think, again, it's definitely a toss-up. Now I'll let Phil and Julie fight it out in that household over which one's better. I won't pick sides here tonight. But as far as the two of those goes, I think they do stand out on their own as far as the Old Forester line goes. It's a toss-up between the two of them. It's more of a preference thing, I think, at that point than it is which one's better. But then you definitely see a little bit of a step down between the 1897. I haven't had the 1870 yet. And then the 86 proof is just obviously in its league in its own, but at the bottom shelf there. But
Yeah, I think that the 1897, as far as Bottled and Bond products go, it definitely performed well in our blind Bottled and Bond tasting, better than I thought it would. It is a little spicy. In my opinion, it's probably a little more expensive than it should be, but not by a lot. The 1870, the biggest flaw that I find, and it's not really a flaw, but the thing that makes me feel like maybe it doesn't belong in the same category as the rest of these, is the mouthfeel. It has a really thin mouthfeel for me, and it's just not exciting. These other ones, I feel like they bring so much to the table, especially these two. These are, when you're talking bang for your buck, it's hard to find anything to gripe about. And these two are so satisfying. Honestly, if we had to pick, and we're going to do this challenge in the near future of the best of the rest, we want to do the 1870 to 1897 and the Statesman, which technically isn't Whiskey Row, but it's priced the same way. It's in the same bottle shape, and we think it's really, really tasty. If I had to pick a third place behind these two, I would probably go Statesman.
I would tend to agree with that.
Because those two bottles just showed up. I can't get the 1910, but the other one showed up, and they're all priced higher than they should. Like for me, I know the 1920, and I really enjoy it. Like you said, the whole experience, mouth feels fantastic, and it's rich. That one to me is a dark, rich one as well. And then I'm getting the numbers mixed up in my head, but the Bottled and Bond is the same price as the 1920 right now, and it's tough to reach for it, right? Because you have to kind of reach past a bottle that you enjoy. But, we're all on a journey, and I'm still looking to try new whiskeys, right? So that's a tough one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of love for Buffalo Trace Bourbon, by the way, in the chat tonight. Just the straight up Buffalo Trace Bourbon. And Chris, we were talking about this before we jumped on together. When you have it, it's almost always surprising when you go back to it and you go, it's still so good. It can be hard to find for a lot of folks, but for the price, when you can get it, all the love, it makes sense. Solid whiskey. I just wanted to make sure we called that out, because it seems like a lot of people are on that train tonight, and it's a good one.
Yeah, as far as, especially for like if you're new to the bourbon world and you're trying to hunt that first bottle of bourbon, and what are you going to hunt? And obviously Buffalo Trace is always going to be at the top of the list for what people want to get their hands on. So that's one of the easier bottles to find in the Buffalo Trace lineup, and still only for that $26 for a bottle of it. It's definitely a good pickup anytime you can get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But John's got a little bias here towards Knob Creek, and I'm going to keep my bias going as well with the Heaven Hill. And I didn't even realize that I did this until we started kind of going through our heads which bottle we're going to pick. And this is the Old Ezra 7. This comes in at 117 proof, another barrel strength bourbon from Heaven Hill. And this is Lux Row, so I shouldn't say it's Heaven Hill exactly. This is this is a source product that Lux Row Distillery puts out. But again, it's the same mash bill as Heaven Hill, and everybody kind of has that assumption and that notion that it's Heaven Hill. So I'm going to put it out there that it's probably a Heaven Hill product. So we've got 3 Heaven Hill products in my lineup. John, I don't know if you're pulling out another Knob Creek for your last bottle, but the Old Ezra 7 is just one of those, again, at that barrel strength, that 117 proof. Here in Pennsylvania, it's only $40, and you're still getting all of those great bourbon flavors with, I would suggest, like a little bit more rye spice than I would have expected, or at least a little bit more of a spice, all pepper, or black pepper, allspice than I would have expected with just being a 10% rye, but still just so perfectly balanced that maybe it's not Wild Turkey or even Old Forester, maybe it's Heaven Hill that I'm going to be leaning towards these days, but not a bad pickup if you ask me at $40. The Old Ezra 7, kind of a sleeper pick, is not a lot of people talking about it all the time.
John, is that one you've seen up there?
It's one I've seen and can't find again. 2 years ago, I picked it as my bourbon of the year. Actually, I love that bottle. Again, super good value, like priced well, and I love the flavor you're getting out of that. Like you said, the spice. I don't know. It's been a while. Like I said, I think 2 years ago, and it's dried up, so I can't get it. But a great pick. Yeah, mad respect for that bottle.
And I'll say that's one that I have not had before. We can't. Well, I mean, you said you've seen it.
I've seen
a
it
time or two, but it's over here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw it one time on the shelf when I was busy buying other things and didn't have the budget for it. And one other time, somebody pulled one out from behind the counter and offered it to me. But again, I had too many other things on the list. And I kind of kicked myself for that because it sells 55 here, I believe. And, just one of those that you go, well, I thought sooner or later I'd have a shot at that one. Just haven't seen it at all.
Right. And Lux Row is just one of those, if people who don't know, they put out they got the Ezra, they got the Yellowstone, they're doing the, what do they have? Rebel Yell, a bunch of products coming out of Lux Row. So they've definitely got some good products over there. So if you do see it on the shelf, I'd recommend picking one up.
Yeah, we will now. We won't pass it again.
There you go.
Took a little flack on that pick back when I did it because I was back and forth against 1920. And I would say far more viewers were like, "You're wrong, John. That 1920 is a better, bigger, bolder bourbon." But I said, "Well, I got to go with what my flavor's telling me." So, yeah, good bourbons.
That's interesting. Yeah, we'll never pass on that again.
All right. Well, and just to say, like, I like more than just Knob Creek. I have the rare breed right here. That was good. And then I was going to say, well, if you can't afford that, Wild Turkey, you can't go wrong with Wild Turkey. That people are saying they love Buffalo Trace, which I do as well. Then now we're talking even more affordable. How can you, like, bang for buck? This needs to be somewhere on a shelf, I would suggest. Great bourbon. But if I'm going my third pick, I got a controversial one. I texted you guys about this, because of the price difference again in markets. And I don't want this to be the show about markets, but it does affect when you have a title like bang for your buck, right? Because we put value in the title. So I was able to pick up, and I didn't pull it in the box, but this Granny's batch of Booker's, which comes in a beautiful, beautiful box, and this was like less than the 1920 up here. Like, it was very affordable. And yeah, this to me gives you that classic Jim Beam. There's lots of peanut brittle in here for me. But it's also, I don't know, it's got some almost burnt, like what does he say? Granny's bunt cake or something, I don't know, like that. Like, I thought it was a good mnemonic to give you those kinds of flavors, right? And I get it in this one. And for me, because it was priced the way it was, it, to me, deserved a place in this bang for your buck discussion if you can get it at that kind of price. I think I got it for under 50 American, so that's a great price. I think.
Deal.
That is a great price. I think around here it runs 85, which is a pretty big jump. So again, I'm past the prime of the bourbon before the bourbon boom, like some of you guys have been drinking it. So it definitely, I've seen people talk about they used to get it for $50, $55, $60. And now this Booker's is going up to $85 now, which when I found it at $85, I thought I got it for a steal. So for you finding it for $50, it definitely doesn't deserve to be anywhere else on the list than bang for your buck at $50.
Totally agree.
That was a sale. Like it doesn't sit on the shelf at that price, but the fact that I could get it, I think it counts.
I agree.
Completely. Yeah, we have one bottle of Booker's in house, and we actually passed on the latest release. And once again, we were just looking for other things, and it was $90 here. That's the cheapest we've ever seen it. Is 90 here in Oregon. So yeah, we missed out on this most recent batch simply because, again, budget. Just too many things that we want to buy.
And that's another one of those bottles that the Granny's batch I think comes in at what 126 somewhere around there, 126 proof. And that, I mean, that thing drinks smooth for what you're getting there.
Yep, 126.4.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's the thing for anyone watching internationally. Someone confirmed with a brand ambassador, like we only get one release, eh? We don't get the 4. And so ours has the date on there, and then it has an E for export market. And I, for a while, was like, I think it's different. I think they choose different, because I was liking Teresa's batch more than just about anybody online. And so I was sure I had a different release, but it's been confirmed that this is just that first batch. So that's why this is Granny's, because it's a 2020-01, right? The first release in 2020.
Samit from Madeira Diary says he's going to move to Canada just for the sale on Booker's there. So I don't disagree, though. For $50, that like you said, even if it is a sale, that's a steal.
Yeah, that's an incredible one. That's fantastic.
So those are our 3 bottles from each of us. I know you guys mentioned you got 6 bottles over there, John. Do you want to throw one more up there as a specialty? Maybe we'll all reach on the shelf and grab one more that we're thinking of real quick.
Said 6, but it was more like I had Rare Breed that you picked, and I had Wild Turkey. I just have a few here. For deals, I would have gone for some of the standards that I've heard in the chat here, like Buffalo Trace. I think you can't go wrong. Well, I suggest they're a great start, really good flavor, and up here, you know, a Buffalo Trace costs quite a bit less than Eagle Rare, which would be another, like, I really like Eagle Rare, but for me, it's a big jump in price. But it would be looking at those kind of Old Granddad. We can't get the 114, so I would have just done the Bottle and Bond, Old Granddad. You know, those are when you're looking for big bourbons, those are, I think, all get on the shelf at some point and should. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And DMCKY here says that when he saw the live stream, he immediately thought Wild Turkey Rare Breed and Knob Creek Single Barrel. So you guys definitely know that you picked a few there that are winners for sure.
Yeah, you know, we did have some runners up that are just not as readily available. You know, things that we didn't really want to call out strictly, but then again, now we're talking 3 different markets here. So I mean, in Oregon, what do we like? There's a couple of them. If you want to call out a couple.
So when we were looking at this list, I said I would be remiss not to call out Stag Junior. If you can get it, because we got that for $55 $50 here in Oregon. It was not, you know, we get it at MSRP, and it is maybe the most delicious drink that I've had all year. Like, it's just so worth the money, but it's impossible to find. So we didn't want
talking MSRP. That's the bottle.
Yeah, it drinks way over its price point.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like, if you can find it, that may be the best bang for your buck that you can.
I think that was my favorite bottle to find. I found a batch 14, and it was one of those lucky days I showed up at the right place at the right time. And yeah, it's just the bottle alone is, you just look at it and it just jumps out at you when you see it on the shelf. So that's another one of those allocated bottles these days that you just can't find. And unfortunately, that's the way it goes until they can get a little bit more inventory with this bourbon boom that's going on.
Yeah, for sure. And then we also, you know, there was some like early times Bottle and Bond.
Right.
Impossible. You're getting more difficult to find now. And things like, you know, if you can't find that, Cooper's Craft Barrel Reserve, right in the, you know, it's a great bottle. But again, I think that maybe that's 6 or 8 states where that's actually being shipped to. So, you know, there's so many great bottles we'd love to call out that, you know, the availability is not there, or it's just super rare, or whatever it might be. So, you know, we wanted to identify, at least for us, the ones that we thought might be readily available for most people out there.
And I agree with that. That's the best way to do it.
Is
it hard to get yeah, again, bang for a buck. I often think, and we have quite a few cask strength or single barrel type picks. Makes, I think, sense. But is it hard to get like Elijah Craig barrel strength or barrel proof for you guys? Is that easy or is that hard to get?
For us in Oregon, we've seen it, and we say Oregon, but we get around in the West Coast here. We've never had a problem finding that, but we know plenty of people who have had trouble finding, especially like Chicagoland. I know you guys are struggling to find it over there.
Yeah, here in Pennsylvania, it's pretty much the same. As long as you're kind of on top of looking for it and you know when the release is coming out and you don't wait too long, you can usually get your hands on it. I got my hands on all three from last year. I got the A121. I actually skipped the B521 just because I have 5 bottles of barrel proof Elijah Craig here that I need to get through before I can try another one. And like I mentioned before, the budget is limited, so.
And we've yet to get the
barrel proof. It's beautiful. I love it. I sometimes put a splash of water in it or pour it over ice because it holds up well, but I don't even mind taking just small sips. Having said that, the bottle stays around, right? Because it's so strong.
Mm-hmm.
And you just meant you got five bottles sitting on the shelf, and they're going to sit there for a while. Like that's also something
you can see them back here. They're lined up. And again, like you just mentioned, with that proof, you can't have 2 or 3 of them or 4 of them in a night. You kind of got to take your time with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the funny thing is that right now that B521 is out, right? And it seems like everybody's doing a video about how this stuff is not as good as it was previously, and the proof is down, and everybody's, it seems like everybody's dumping on this bottle. We haven't had it here yet, but I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe it's not quite up to par with all the latest releases. I bet it's still really good.
When you compare
maybe I'm a fanboy, but I think it's great. I'll be surprised if it's not really good.
When you compare one great thing to another great thing, it might not live up to the hype of the other Elijah Craig barrel proofs, but at the same time, it's still probably better than most of the other stuff out there right now.
Exactly.
And then we have Chris Blumker coming in saying Evan Williams BIB, obviously a great pick. And then he also says he wants to cry hearing about all this stuff at MSRP. He's down in Texas down there. And I don't know too much about Texas whiskey. I know a few down there that make their way up. John, I know you were talking about Texas before, looking on the website and everything like that, but I don't know too much about Texas whiskey.
No, we get balcones here, and that is pretty much the end of the story.
I'm the same way here. This you just did a review on this one, the Still Austin. They have a local painter, you said, made that label for them, correct?
Yeah, the painter was declared. Oh boy! Now I'm going to say it wrong again. The artist of Texas or something like that by the legislature, and this is really good. I can't say it's bang for your buck because it's priced higher than many other bourbons I would reach for, but really, like if you see it on your shelf and you've got a little extra or something, like I would recommend. The flavor profile on this is just fantastic. So that's from Texas, and then I tried Iron Root. You must have tried Iron Root Harbinger.
I have not, but I actually just heard about it recently. I told my buddy Chris here to actually keep an eye out for it. That it was apparently a good whiskey from down there.
Isn't it declared the bourbon of the world or something at the World Whiskey Awards in 2020 or something?
You've got me, but if it is, then I definitely. That's probably why he can't find it at this point.
Yeah, John. If it's not on my shelf, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
No, I actually didn't know that either until like a friend had sent me a sample. So that's when I was doing my research, right? Because you get this grid of samples, and you're like, oh, that's cool, and you start looking, and I'm like, really? It won that? Like I had no idea. Yeah. So it was really good, and some chatter on that, and I can relate a bit to the Still Austin. Is that some of the bourbons? I can't speak for all of them. I've only had a few of them, but they tend to be in a spicier, char oakier type profile and less fruity, like significant less fruit than some other bourbon profiles. So kind of cool.
That sounds like it would hit my palate. That's my kind of whiskey.
It's definitely one that he better bring home for me next time I see him. That's all I know. Somebody asked in there if
DMCKY
asked if there was said your somebody is going to Portland and you're asking if they should bring you any whiskey back, there's a lot of sourced stuff around. One of the distilleries that's doing a lot of interesting things, I just want to call it real quick, is Bull Run in Portland. This one, for instance, is aged 13 years and then gets another 6 months in Pinot Noir casks locally. That's a $35 bottle. So one of those brands that even if it's not going to blow your doors off, it's solid whiskey. It's really good. And it's
local here.
Yeah, it's fairly local. And then Hood River Distillery makes something called what's that?
Trails End.
Trails End. Thank you. It's an 8-year aged whiskey. I believe it comes from Heaven Hill, and it's sourced from Heaven Hill. And then they age it they do the Maker's 46 thing, but they use Oregon oak. That's a really unique whiskey that, even though it's not technically made here, it's an 8-year aged whiskey selling for $35 that gets the Maker's 46 treatment with unique oak. It's a unique whiskey. I recommend that. Lastly, Oregon Spirit. They do make all their own stuff. It's all grain to glass. Pretty much everything that they make, we enjoy.
That's one thing that I don't get too much of out here. I've tried a few of the Pennsylvania local things, and I haven't found one quite yet that I truly enjoy. There are a few that are pretty decent, and I think once they get a little bit of age behind them, a little bit of time under their belt, they'll be able to make some good product. But they're saying out here that Portland has some great products, and I'm kind of jealous of that for sure.
Yeah, some good stuff out here for sure. There's a good question in the chat. Steve says, any good ryes that are good bang for buck whiskeys?
Right.
There are. I mean, we are so enamored with ryes, and I'm enamored with Canadian ryes to that end. I just think that there's so much great stuff out there. Old Forester rye is terrific if you can find it. And
it's like $22.
$22 for a 100 proof rye. That's fantastic. They actually just released their barrel strength single barrels today. They just announced that, I believe, which $80. I don't know how good of a bang for buck that is, but it sure looks fantastic.
The bottle was pretty.
Bottle is very pretty. We talked about Alberta Premium Cask Strength earlier. If you can find that, that's a bottle that we think is phenomenal if you like stronger stuff. But yeah, there's so many great ryes out there.
I will call out that. Sorry.
No, that you were just about to say. You guys got me onto that. You put out that rye, the best top 5 ryes for your collection, and that Pikesville is. I walked across that in New Jersey, and I had to pick it up just from your review there. It's one of the good ones.
That was the first one. I don't even know if it's like the first wow that I had when Phil was trying to get me into bourbons and whiskeys and ryes and stuff. The first one that was just so delicious, and because it was a rye, it just felt like it drank a little bit different. That probably is one of the best bang for your buck ryes, just because of that dessertiness. And at $45, if you can get it for $45,
yeah,
I mean, it's just great.
Yeah, we get a little bubbly when we talk about rye.
Oh, good.
Yeah, 50's great.
So great.
And then you also talked about the Wild Turkey, again, a fan favorite here in the chat. The Wild Turkey rye is another one for, you said, was it a liter? Was that the one you got for a liter?
Yeah,
or is that
the 101, that liter of 101 we got for $27.
$27 for a liter of 101 rye.
That's too, if you're just getting into rye, American rye especially, that is one that I think brings rye character straight to the forefront. If you really want to taste rye grain and experience a rye whiskey, and you don't want to spend a fortune because you're not sure what you're going to like, that is a great introduction to rye. We think that's a special bottle.
How about you, John? You got any ryes up there you like?
Yeah, I'm jealous that we can't get that 101 rye. I've had samples. I really like it. I know it'll be affordable because we get the regular 101 bourbon. But we can just get the non-101, like the I don't even know what it is, 80 some proof rye, and I haven't reached for it because I don't like that bourbon. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I know it's a totally different product, but I haven't reached for it. Up here, yeah, we've got a lot of monster ryes. You mentioned the casks, the Alberta Premium Cask Strength, but there's a lot of, when I look at local or small distilleries putting out some pretty great ryes. Lot 40, that's not a small. I said small distillery, and then I'm about to mention one of the biggest Canadian distilleries there is. Hiram Walker puts out a whole line of Lot 40. I'm sure you've heard of Lot 40 or seen it. I know that is one that does make it south of the border, just the regular Lot 40 at 43%. It's not a monster, but it's got some really good rye characteristic and fruit both. And then they're playing with the line right here. They put out a dark oak recently where they put it back in for some extra barrel char kicking around, and that's just a great bottle. And then their cask strength, they come out every year. They do an annual release of a cask strength. It's like a barrel proof, and every one of them is phenomenal. Like they're just like, that's absolutely high on my list. Now I'm pumping Canadian, but it's good rye.
Well, I will say that we had never had the opportunity to have Lot 40 and
Not the cask strength.
Not the cask strength, but we just got to try the first one just a month ago.
Yeah, it was one of our 5 Sip Friday videos. Somebody sent us a sample.
Sent us a sample, and it was good.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, it was. I don't remember exactly which one it was. I think it was our first 5 Sip Friday video that we did. It was absolutely just. It was crazy. It was crazy good.
Like we've said a couple times, Phil is really into the Canadian ryes right now.
Something about it.
So we talked about Knob Creek before, and this was one I wanted to bring up earlier, but we were sticking strictly to the bourbons. But I have the Knob Creek cask strength straight rye whiskey barreled in 2010, and I'll tell you what, this is an accidental pickup. So this was when I first got into bourbon. You know, you're walking around the store and you see Knob Creek, great bourbon, great 9-year, great this, great that. So I see Knob Creek on the shelf. I decide I'll pick this up. It'll be a great bourbon to add to my collection. I bring it home, and then I come to find out it's not even a bourbon. It's a limited release cask strength rye, which sipping the first time is like thinking you're drinking a bottle of water when really it's a bottle of vodka, because I wasn't expecting it at all. So I ended up drinking it. I didn't like it at first, and now that I've gotten into the rye, the bourbon, and actually loving all the stuff that I'm drinking, this one is phenomenal. This is the barreled in 2010 version, and this is just absolutely delicious, but definitely not bang for your buck. I think this one came in at like $65 or $67 or something like that. But I just wanted to mention that as a funny story for anybody who's looking into the rye world.
We never gotten a chance to try that one, but honestly, for a well-aged rye, you could pay a lot more than that. And also, howdy to Stefan Whiskey, dropping a recommendation for a bang for the buck rye in the chat there. Never seen that one, but that's one to put on the list for sure.
King's Family Rye Conic.
Phil and Julie, have you guys had the cask strength Knob Creek rye?
We had a single barrel from a store, I think it was in Washington, and it was 120 proof. It was not my favorite bottle, and I don't know if it was because of the pick or if it was because maybe it just didn't appeal to us. But we usually have a Knob Creek rye on the shelf here. We don't at the moment, but yeah, that was one that it didn't hit my palate. Actually, it was one of those bottles that I just kind of kept working on to move it along. Sometimes that happens.
It was easier to work bottles along before COVID, I have to say, because you'd have a few people over, and it's easier to, do you want to try this? Maybe you'll like it. You know?
Yeah, this one that I'm not too fond of.
Friend, but, you know.
Yeah, I've just recently had an experience like that where I brought friends back over, and I'm like, try this one, you'll love it, right?
Yeah, Stefan Whiskey says Knob Creek 115 proof. That's the store picks. That's what we had was 115. I think I said 120. I was wrong about that.
Yeah, and I was asking because Chris, I've seen maybe not that release, but we do get that up here, but I've never picked it up, and I'm a huge rye person, so I'm surprised. But it's the cost. It's priced really high up here for such a bizarre. Like it's twice the price of the cask bourbon. Like I don't understand. Like why would it be that kind of cost?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And like I said before, it was just one of those things where I picked it up, and I do enjoy it. I think it's a great bottle, but again, bang for your buck bourbon, I would definitely, or bang for your buck rye in this instance, I definitely wouldn't put it up there in that category.
Yeah. We do have we have this store pick here of a Whistle Pig. Actually, speaking of Canadian rye, even though it comes out of Vermont, it's definitely Canadian. It's a 10-year, but I believe it was actually a 16-year pick, which is real old for rye. This was not. This is 106.7 proof. This was not an affordable bottle. We paid about $80 for this, but we split it 3 ways. So if you're wondering, geez, how do they get those expensive bottles on the shelf. A lot of times we split them.
That's how you make it a bang for your buck.
That's how
that's how you get it on the bang for your buck trend. Yep.
So this one is very good, but yeah, sometimes you got to split those bottles with your friends.
Yeah.
Whistle Pig is one that I haven't really dabbled in yet. I've heard good things and people do enjoy it, but again, like you said, you're paying that premium price for it. So
yeah,
especially with the store pick too, you just never know what you're going to get. Most of them are just phenomenal, and some don't really hit it. So
always ask for a sample.
So we've been encouraging, just people that we talk to, like if you've got a couple friends that are into whiskey and bourbon, go in together on a bottle that you just want to try, and then you at least, because they're not really doing samples at stores anymore, or at least right now. Hopefully that'll come back. But
yeah, we always, when we go to the store for the with a couple of friends for the weekend, looking at what are we going to drink, split a bottle. Works great.
Never even thought of that, to be honest with you. And I haven't been in it long enough, I think, since before COVID to get into any type of store tastings or anything. But I'd assume as COVID starts to end and things start to open back up, that bourbon would be a big hit as far as like a local store tasting or anything goes, even in the ABC markets where it's state controlled.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We have a pretty good track record with different stores bringing in people really affordable nights. Like, of course, for a while, I don't know if that's the same with you guys. You could just go into a store and you could any bottle under on $100, you could pretty much just get a taste of, like just not a tasting, just I'd like to try that. Oh, sure, that kind of thing. Then that dried up a little bit, but then they'd have evenings where a brand ambassador or someone would come through. It'd be like $20 or something like that, but you'd taste 6 different bottles. It was a really nice idea.
I would love something like that.
Yeah, there are still liquor stores that we run into from time to time where if you're looking at something, they'll ask if they can pull it off the shelf and sample it for you, because I know that there's certainly some states that will actually reimburse them. I don't know exactly what the rules are, but we've been offered the opportunity to try things in multiple states in our travels where we were having a hard time deciding between things. So it doesn't hurt to ask.
Steve comes in here and mentions 1792 small batch has been a surprise budget bourbon for him, and 1792 is one of those bottles. It's one of my favorites. I actually just ran out of the small batch. I have an empty bottle down here. I have pretty much all of the 1792 lineup, and I would agree that was one that I was very close to putting in this budget bourbon discussion here, that I actually enjoy it as a daily sipper myself, the 1792 small batch.
I'm at full proof. If we've talked about a lot of higher proof stuff. For 125 proof, we've seen that. Well, we bought it for $50 here not too long ago. Of course, that bottle's long gone already. Yeah, we like that 1792 line, and we like that full proof for $50 and the small batch for under 30. Solid whiskeys. Absolutely.
Great, you're adding to my shopping list. I noticed we just got that in. We haven't had it. Like, it just came to our market like last week or something. So
yeah, I would highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
Barton 1792 is funny because they've got so much well-aged stuff, and so much of their whiskey gets sourced to other folks. It just seems like every time you turn around, there's something else to try that's either sourced from them or that comes from them. And actually, the new Costco line, as I understand it, is coming from that distillery, and they're going to have a small batch, I don't know if it's bottled and bond, and I know they're going to have a cask strength or full proof. So there's 3 different varieties that are supposed to be in the Costco that are coming from Barton 1792. Of course, we can't buy alcohol at Costco in Oregon, so we're going to have to go elsewhere to find it. But that'll be interesting when that is fully released and out in the wild, to compare it to the other 1792 products. And
Kirkland always has to have their hand in the cookie jar, don't they?
And yeah, this will be probably better than the last time around with their whiskeys.
I would hope so.
I have to hope so, yeah.
Either of you guys had Penelope? Is that how you say it?
Penelope.
Penelope.
That's it.
Penelope. Yeah, Lyle said he's drinking that tonight. I've never had a bottle of that, but Chris, I know you're into this.
I'm a huge fan. So I have the 80 proof. It's a 4-grain bottle. The 80 proof is absolutely delicious. As far as a younger bourbon goes, now it's sourced. It's an MGP product. They're very forthright about what they have going on. And then they actually have a barrel strength as well. This is the batch 6. I have a sample of the batch 5. I think it's one of the better sourced younger bourbons that are out there as far as the 80 proof goes, or younger proof bourbons. The 80 proof is absolutely delicious. It just seems, as far as, now again, you got to take it with a grain of salt what you're getting from Penelope. You're getting a 80 proof bourbon, but if you compare it to something like at Basil Hayden's at $40, I think it compares pretty well. And then the 115 proof batch 6, it's very flavorful compared to some of the other products that you're getting at that price point, sourced, at least from my perspective.
Nice.
Is that something we can get here?
I've never seen a bottle of it.
It doesn't sound familiar.
They're definitely younger. They're a younger I don't know when they exactly got their start. But they are one of the new and upcoming. It's like almost like Penelope, New Riff actually putting out their own product compared to Penelope, who's sourcing theirs. But it's a great story as well. A couple of guys got together and named it after one of the guy's daughters, and him and his wife's best friend, and all of them run it together. So great people, great product, and I'll talk highly about it all the time myself.
John,
you can tell I don't know anything about Penelope. I couldn't even say it right. But I saw Lyle, I think it was Lyle, right in the chat, mentioned it. And again, I'm really just here to fill out my shopping list, because it also has just shown up in our market. And you wonder, right? You see these new, because there's so many, right? You see these new bottles, and some of these, like, people ask, where do you want to start? I mean, Rare Breed's a quick recommend. It's incredibly affordable. You want to start with a cask strength, give it a try. But Penelope cask strength is, twice that price up here. And so there's always that hesitation to reach for it. So it's good to know, Chris, you like it.
I do enjoy it.
Yeah, and Lyle mentions that it's wheat on the nose, rye on the palate, and bourbon on the finish. That's not super unusual if you're drinking the 4 grain. There's the Oregon Spirit bottled and bond is a 4 grain, and it's a single barrel product. So it's always you never know exactly from bottle to bottle. It could have different characteristics, but that's one of those that we noticed that on the finish, it shifts gears on you. Right when you think you've got the finish dialed in, all of a sudden there's a different flavor that shows up, 30 seconds, 45 seconds down the road. So those 4 grains are especially interesting. They're a unique breed.
I would agree 100%.
I will say some of these smaller distilleries.
Connect to a Canadian product. You ever see Gooderham and Warts? It's a 4 grain product as well. Now it's Canadian, so it's a little sweeter in the profile. It doesn't have as much of that backbone you're getting from that virgin oak, because it's got a lot of second cask finishing. So it's not finishing, aging in second or third fill barrels, but it's got what you just described. It's got a story, right? Where you're starting to get to know it, you're nosing like, okay, and then you sip it, and then it's okay. It's not like shocking. That happens too on whiskeys, but it's like, okay, that's different, the palate. And then even as you're talking in that night, you'll catch something in the long finish. It's really good stuff. So yeah, if you see some Gooderham and Warts, it's worth a try.
What were you saying?
I was just going to say, some of these smaller distilleries, it's one of the things that is kind of on our bucket list this year, just to kind of try some new, different, smaller things that we know are out there, but don't get a lot of love, really, right? Like, we always focus on just the big guys, right?
Yeah.
And so even like the Penelope one, like that just sounds interesting and something I'd love to.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just traveling this past weekend. We popped into a distillery, and it turned out to be, was it Freeland?
Freebird? No, maybe not.
I think it was Freeland.
It's a great song, Mel.
Yeah, great song. And it was a woman-owned and distillery with a female head distiller, and it was great. It was very surprisingly tasty bourbon, not because of woman-owned, but because it was just you had heard. We'd heard of it. We'd seen the bottles on the shelf, but not really a ton. And we just thought, well, let's pop in and see what they've got. And we thought that, well, it's going to be craft, it's going to be good. You don't know what to expect, and it was better than even we could have hoped for. So that's one of those, exciting things that happens with these small distilleries. You get unique flavors, and it a lot of times they'll surprise you.
And take chances. I think a lot. I don't know. I don't remember which one that I drank or whatever, but I know it was like barreled for so long and just in a Pinot barrel, and just like different things that you can kind of do with these smaller batches. Obviously, there's a lot of Pinot finished whiskeys out there, but yeah,
super unique. Good question in the chat there. Thoughts on a budget wheat or larceny or makers, that sort of thing. Chris Beaton, dead on with the special reserve from Weller. If you can find it, I don't know if you can do better than that, but man, is that special reserve getting tougher and tougher to find.
And now if you can find it, I would say that is great.
Yeah.
So
I'm a maker's girl, though.
You guys just did your budget, $250 budget, put your budget bourbon together for a beginner, and Weller's Special Reserve was one that I put on mine for the 200 bottle and for a $200 budget. And I agree, if you can find it, it's one of those, again, we're talking Buffalo Trace Sazerac, that's a little bit harder to find, but if you put a little bit of effort in and you call around to the right places, it's starting to get a little bit more out there. So I haven't had I'm not the biggest fan of larceny as far as that goes, but I haven't had the larceny barrel proof myself. I don't know how that compares to the Elijah Craig barrel proofs, but
yeah, I would say that the makers, for my money, makers 46 is the thing.
It's the ticket.
I just think it's just elevated for $35. You know, it's worth the price up from regular maker's mark. Larceny barrel proof we find here for $50, and the C920 is pretty good. I know some people really like the C920. For me, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, that B520, I think it's super flavorful. It hits my palate perfectly. I really like that one.
Which one did Whiskey Advocate pick as their top in 2020?
I want to say it was the C920, but I don't recall exactly.
I didn't know exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't recall. We don't get that one up here either. But we got lots of Weller, lots of it.
Oh,
So you're good.
I feel like you're flexing on us, John.
I know. Steve just said that.
I was trying.
My buddy Chris says 38 for a handle in Texas for the Weller Special Reserve. He has that. He'll take shots of that if he needs to, because he's got plenty of it on the shelf. He's spoiled down there.
Yeah, and we get it for about 35 here, not for the liter.
No, well, actually, we've gotten the 750 milliliter here for 26. We've seen that before, so I've never seen a liter bottle in person.
Which is why it makes Steve's comment about $100 in SoCal kind of makes me sad.
Yeah.
It's still delicious, though.
It's one of the better weeded bourbons that I've had. I've found that I'm not the biggest weeded guy myself, but Weller Special Reserve, and I've had the Weller Full Proof and the Weller Antique 107, and all three of those bottles are just absolutely fantastic. But again, those are three bottles that good luck if you're looking for them.
Yeah. The Weller Full Proof, the Weller 12, those are ones that we have never seen. I don't know if we ever will, but the 12 is, that's the one that they say is supposedly Pappy Jr., and unfortunately everybody got it in their heads that that's all the Wellers instead of just that one. So it's unfortunate that they're so hard to find, but who knows? Buffalo Traces, they've doubled and maybe tripled their production in the last couple of years, so we'll see.
They've got a good marketing team down there for sure. Chris Beaton says Weller's is used in our cereal on the weekends, so that's how easy it is for him to get it down there.
The weekends.
My market, just so you know. So he was trying to flex with me there. Yeah.
You guys.
You can find Weller that easy up there?
Actually, just the Special Reserve.
Okay.
Like we've had, of course, all those bottles at some point, but just not anymore.
Gotcha.
The 12, the Full Proof, they were up here regularly, and then they're just not. But Special Reserve is actually very, very common and an off and on offer sale. Like it's not hard to find at all.
Man. Lyle says, John, meet me at the border with Bookers and Weller in hand. What should I bring?
Just toss it across.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's stellar. That's great.
I know I have to go up to Canada and someday, John. Someday.
We haven't been up there since 2019. We're overdue.
I haven't been up there since 2010 or something like that. Montreal.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all looking to travel a bit at some point, right? And see friends or new places. You guys are campers a lot, right? I mean, I see you outside, or no? You're camping when I see that, right?
Yep.
And I can't imagine you wouldn't want to. There's lots of playground up here for that, right?
And then, Calgary, and then we went to Banff, so we backpacked and camped up in Banff for a while. But yeah,
Calgary, cool city, man.
cool city.
I really like Calgary.
Minus the Flames. We're big hockey fans down here in the Pennsylvania area. Big go Flyers, but I don't know how big of a hockey fan you. John, you got to be a hockey fan a little bit up there to be in Canada. I feel like you have to have a hockey card, but
Yeah, for sure. Except I have to represent him in Edmonton, so I hate everything about Calgary. I hate all the people. I think they're terrible, and the only thing about Calgary is how to get through it or past it. And yeah, my favorite team is anybody but the Flames. No, I'm kidding. I honestly kidding. I love Calgary. I really enjoy, and they have that Stampede. If you've ever been up for that, it's a great party. It is a great outdoor party that's worth joining, and there's lots of great people. But I'm in Edmonton, so I have to hate them.
gotcha. Makes sense.
Fair. That's fair.
But listen, I appreciate both you guys getting on with me tonight. This was awesome, John. I'm really glad you can make it after all the problems you had going on up there with the power and everything. That's awesome that you could get on. Phil and Julie, this was great. Lyle, thank you for Lyle, right? That gave you the idea for this.
It was Lyle. Absolutely.
Lyle, you're the man behind the live here. So this is my first live. Again, I appreciate you both for being on. I appreciate everybody for stopping in tonight. And this is your bang for your buck bourbon. So make sure you guys go out and get them. So.
Thanks, guys. It's great to see you guys in person, sort of.
Yeah, how about that? Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks so much.